platform to do more than just be an athlete, to change the world, to serve others, to contribute to my community. And to me, all of you embody something that he always said to me. To whom much is given, much is required, and I thank you for being the embodiment of that. So I'm going to jump into this with you, Dr. Carlos. On that note of what I just said, do you feel that athletes, specifically Black athletes, have a responsibility to promote social justice and be a voice for those in the community who are not heard?
By all means, it's their responsibility to be a voice. They're an exception to the rule in terms of those of us that come involved in sports. Many of us come from the slums of the city, you might say. We achieve greatness through athletics, but it's your responsibility to always look back and try to bring those up that was left behind, bring them up, bring them into the light, to make them even more conscious in terms of their responsibilities to step up and represent themselves in their race as well.
MP Swan, I think about you and Mrs. Swan. I think about community service. That's the first thing that comes to mind, how you serve the community, how you're always looking to uplift your community, and how you really dedicated your life to that. Why are you so passionate about community and sharing the sport of golf with the wider community?
Well, the answer to that is very simple. If it wasn't for the community, I wouldn't be standing here today. I give thanks to Almighty, but I also give thanks to my single parent moms who trusted the community that I grew up in. I'm very honored. I have two of my school PE teachers here, Mr. K.H. Randolph Horton and Mr. Jerry Swan, who knew that when I was 11 years old, I wanted to take Peter Benetti's job at Chelsea. But God had something different for me. And when I was 22, after winning in collegiately in America, I was a member of the PGA Tour whose office moved from Knightsbridge right there where Chelsea's home ground is right there. So I ended up being in golf, not of my choice, but the choice of my community that shared the knowledge of and passion that I had for sport and transformed it into golf. So I am here because of the community, and because of that, I have to make sure that there's a better community when I close my eyes than what I found. That's the challenge that we all have.
Yes, absolutely. Mr. Clyde Best, what do you think about the fact that you have the Clyde Best Center of Excellence in Operation, and it is really a symbol of the next generation and just really helping them to strive for excellence in sport? What do you feel about knowing that you have a center like that named in your honor?
Well, first of all, it's a privilege to be here this afternoon. And it goes back many, many years ago. I'm like Kim. I have a teacher here today that taught me at West End School. And Mr. Jeffers, I must tell you that in Somerset, we are a community.
Yes, sir.
Amen.
And we help one another, we work with one another, and we have success with one another. Kim, originally, all these good habits come from being in the West End.
Oh boy, you got me.
You might have that little heart about St. George's, but I know deep down inside, he's a Somerset man, so he can't fool me. So, no disrespect to St. George's people, we have lots of friends in St. George's, Somerset and St. George's, you know, those are two parts of the island that work together. So, with me, all of that there comes from being involved in something like that. As I say, coming from Bermuda, your upbringing has a lot to do with it. So, you know, I'm just blessed and thankful, and I'm glad that I was able to get buildings and that named after me. I didn't start my career, you know, saying that that's what's going to happen for me. It's happened, and I would just like to thank the BFA, you know, for taking that lead and doing what they've done for me.
I find that most times when people do have those types of honor and achieve what you've achieved, and they're truly trailblazers, it's not rooted in, as you said, that type of attention or adulation. It's rooted in trying to just be the best they can be, and then naturally those types of things come. So I'm not surprised that you never envisioned a building being named after you, but surely you are well deserving of that. I want to go back to MP Swan, because I don't think we can have a conversation around diversity and inclusion without talking about accessibility. And golf specifically is a sport where there are so many barriers to entry, specifically for young black youth, right? So how were you able to get past those barriers to begin golf? And how do you think we can get more youth involved in the sport?
That's a good question. I think it's important to appreciate that in Bermuda, diversity in golf has been practiced for well over 70 years. This spot where I sit was the Ocean View Golf Club, which was a golf course where during the years of segregation that the black community could play. But we've always been the agents of diversity, and everybody could play on a course that only blacks could play. So our community in Bermuda throughout all spheres has always practiced that. And I've been involved in developing a lot of young people, and the difficulty we have is a lack of understanding for the sport in which they're entering. My ignorance was even during my playing years until I got off the tour and become more of an activist. Still had the talent, but my attention was more focused. I think it's important for everyone in this world to know that there was a Caucasian-only rule in effect in golf from 1934, which was the starting year of the Masters, until 1961, when it was lifted. And it took the Masters 16 years after that time to allow Lee Outer to play. And I was playing college golf and winning in college in the 70s in Alabama, Louisiana, and those areas. And I can tell you that because of that rule, it allowed people to be able to say to anybody today that if you want to do business, you get involved in golf. But if we're not involved in golf, we're not involved in business. And so in order to get young people involved in golf, you got to tell them the truth. And that's what I've been trying to do. And I couldn't have done it without someone named Louis Raphael Kate Corbin who told the truth. He was the Kaepernick before Kaepernick, or he was the Muhammad Ali before Muhammad Ali. He was Lee Elder before Lee Elder. He was Charlie Sifford before Charlie Sifford, and he came from Bermuda. And he was the pro at this golf course. In 1933, the Roy was that he's advertising right here in the same spot. So, yeah, bringing the youth in, but telling the youth what time it is, and letting the world know the time that it is isn't the time we're going to accept any longer, because it's 2021 and we're having a conversation about exclusion in business and participation, and because I traversed the world through golf in the 70s, in Alabama, in Louisiana, Mississippi, northern Florida, and all those places, I know what time it is when it comes to the same things still permeating. But like Bermuda grass, it sits dormant unless the sun shines over a certain temperature. And so racism understands how to lay dormant. And the people that purvey it know how to turn up the temperature when it's needed and how to turn the temperature down when it can be a problem. And we fall for the okie doke too often. So that's my contribution to that. But in this sport that I love, it's a sport for everybody. Every sport is meant for everybody. But the Caucasian rule for 34 until 61 laid the foundation for which you don't see as many blacks in golf as you should, and that needs to change.
Dr. Carlos, I want to go back to your iconic protest and what led up to that. Can you help us understand the climate and the activity, the background that was happening as you led into that protest, and why you made that decision to do that?
Well, what led up to it was I was born June 5th, 1945, and somewhere along the line I looked in the mirror and I saw a young black kid. That was the initial start right there. I realized at a very early age that we were there, but we weren't there. Okay? Like I was referring to Mr. Best and telling him, I said, I remember my father had a white fella used to come selling jewelry. And he had a tendency to take a little kid and he wanted to pat him on his head. And I remember grabbing him by his hand, telling him, don't pat me on my head, I'm nobody's puppy. And he went back to my father, he said to my father, what's wrong with him? It looked like in his mind, he said, my brothers accepted him patting him on the head. What's wrong with this kid? He's out of line. And that's been trail for me all my life in terms of me going against the stream. Everybody's talking about, hey man, you're going the wrong direction. And I told him, I said, well, it's difficult for you to say I'm going the wrong direction because we haven't reached the finish line yet to see who's right or who's wrong. Okay? So in 1968, there was a lot of unrest in America. I think this is the first time that black people in modern day have become aware of themselves and started to assert themselves in society. Like Jesse Jackson came out with the theme, I am somebody. We felt real strong from that statement. When the Black Panther Party started running around with their hoods and started defending the communities and started feeding their own people and started educating their own people, it was time for society to wake up because the sleeping giant is waking up, which is you. You're the sleeping giant. So to look at ourselves as young athletes in San Jose State, we looked at it in terms of us having a community issue, in terms of prejudice and bias towards young black students going to San Jose State. It was hard for us to get a job, it was hard for us to get an apartment, it was difficult for us, period, based on the color of our skin. But then when we looked at it, we realized that this problem was greater than San Jose. It was greater than the United States, it was worldwide. So what did we have to do? We had to go to the library. That's the first place we went to educate ourselves, to make sure that we covered every base. Why? Because if we made a statement relative to race relations, the first thing they're going to do is put that microphone in your face and that camera for you to step up and show your ignorance. Yeah, you fighting for something and don't even know what you're fighting for. Well, we made sure that we had our foundation solid, and we knew what our cause was. We knew what our commitment was. So therefore, now we say, let's establish this Olympic boycott. Not because we didn't want to go to the games. Every young individual that hear about the Olympic Games as a young athlete, that's their ideal in life. I want to be an Olympic champion. But yet and still, we felt that the picture that we were dealing with relative to race relations and inclusion was far greater than me just being merely an Olympian. You know, I want to be the champion to my kids. I want to be the champion to my wife. I want my mom and dad to be proud of me. So, in other words, we had to take, excuse my expression, chicken shit and turn it into chicken salad. And we had to make something out of nothing. So after we studied, then it was a matter of us saying, let's educate those individual athletes that we want to unite or unify so they would have the same knowledge as to why we felt it was necessary to boycott the Olympic Games. Just as I stated earlier, we all want to go to the Olympic Games. I want to go more than anyone. But yet and still, I said the Olympic Games is secondary in my mind as to what the real causes are that we should be concerned about. So we educated individuals. But through the educational process, we did not have the right to tell any individual athlete, hey man, you must boycott these games. You have to boycott these games. All we could do was lay the facts on the table, make sure that you had it in your mind and in your heart. And now we take a vote. And when they took the vote, a lot of them, the knees got weak. You telling me to back away from something that I've been training for, something that I've dreamt about all my life, now you tell me to sacrifice that? Well, a lot of them, it was too big of a bite for them to take. Nah, man, I understand what you're saying, but man, I told my church I'm gonna win a medal. Man, I understand what you're saying, but my kids is waiting on me to come home with a medal. They put that medal like that medal was like God gave it to them. So when they took the vote was that we would go on to the games. When that happened, my mind right away, the minute they said they wanted to go, my mind shut down and said, I'm not going. But I believe that there's a greater power in the universe. Some people call him God. I just say the power of the universe came to little Johnny's mind. And he said, hey, John, you can stay home. But the question is, when someone goes to the podium in your place, will they represent you on that podium? And of course, the answer was, no, they can't represent me. I need to be there to represent me. So then just to keep me comfortable in the environment in which I was in and who I was dealing with or who I was fighting against or opposing, when I broke the world record, they showed me, we're going to put you in check because we're going to say the shoes that you wore when ran that world record. Whereas I was telling them I could have run that world record barefoot that day. But it doesn't matter. You want the record? Because as Mr. Lyle will tell you and his young brother will tell you, any records that we break as athletes, the record is for that nation. It's not for you. That record don't hang around your neck where you say, well, I got to pass because I broke the world record. Let me feed my kids. When we take off and go to Europe, or we come to here to Bermuda and represent America, we might be gone 3 months out of the summer, 2.5 months at least. When we go home, America hasn't paid our bills while we're leaving. Understand? When we over there representing America, remember we got USA on our chest and we were ambassadors for America before we knew what ambassadorship was all about. And they paid us for that job, they paid us handsomely. They paid us $2 a day. And that was for incidentals if I need to wash my underwear. If I was out in the street and I wanted to get a burger or something, $2 a day. So when we put all this in the mix and everybody decided to go, when I got to the games, we running through the process of elimination, I ran into a situation where I'm not enchanted about the fact that the boycott was called off. And I approached Mr. Smith, I think in the quarter semi, and I said to him, I said, Tommy, I said, man, I'm not happy about the fact that the boycott was called off. I want to make a statement. What's your take? He said, I'm with you. Now, people always talk about that race, the running aspect of it. You know, as I stated earlier, medals never turned John Carlos on. When I was in high school, I went to medals, I pinned them on the girls, because medals never meant anything. You know, what meant something to me was what I'm going to remember here and what I'm going to hold here. The bonds that I made with people, that was important to me. So when Tommy said, I'm with you, if a medal doesn't mean anything to John Carlos, why should I achieve that and take a medal from someone that it means everything to? And here's a man, nothing meant more to me than equality in life.
Amen.
You gonna stand with me? Why should I take a medal that has nothing for me and everything for you? So if you see the race and you see me look around in the race, I'm looking to see that I'm one of the top 3 in that race. Because had not been one of the top 3, it's all for naught. So now that we done made the statement, we're gonna do something. Now what artifacts do we have to bring to the table? Well, Mr. Smith said, well, I have some gloves, bring them. I had a black shirt to cover up my USA jersey, bring it. He had a black scarf, bring it. I had beads on my neck, bring it. And let me break it down and give you some idea of what these symbols were. Let's start off with the shoes or shoeless situation. We went out there with black socks on our feet. All our races we ran with black socks. Most of the black athletes ran with black socks that day. Why did we go out there with black socks and no shoes? Because we wanted to illustrate black poverty. The same poverty that we see here on this island amongst black people, same poverty that we see in the United States, all over the United States. So we put black socks on and let them know. We still got kids going in the South right now, walking 10, 15 miles a day back and forth to school with no shoes. So how you gonna take a rocket landing on the moon a half mile from where you anticipated landing it, but you gonna tell them you couldn't kill a roach or you couldn't kill a rat, you couldn't stop starvation? So then the next thing was the gloves. Why do we have the gloves? Because the first thing we want to make people realize, because this is the first time the Olympic Games had ever been televised in Technicolor. So we said, let's get some black gloves so we can let them know who we represent. We represent America, but I always represented me and my family before anyone. We want to represent the black race. But they said it was a black power movement. And I get it confused, they get confused when they say that, because I tell them, I said, nah, our thing wasn't about black power. Our statement was about humanity. It said Olympic Project for Humanity. Why did we say humanity? Because we knew the minute that we said black power, they would say, oh, you're using the race card. All you do is talk about what's been done to you. So we said humanity. We was solid up under the wing or the umbrella of humanity. So the narrative was flipped. And I told him, I said, the only black power was our black fannies running down that track. That was the actual black power. Okay? Then Tommy Smith had a scarf on his neck that symbolized black pride. I had beads on my neck to symbolize the lynchings that had been taking place. Before my time, during my time, and after my time. They still lynching people, us, today. You understand? And then the last thing, we came back and we said, we took that Puma shoe and put that Puma shoe out there. People said, well, what does the shoe have to do with it? Well, I took the Puma shoe out there because when I was a kid, and I went to Adidas one time and asked them for some shoes. They told me, said, nah, man, you ain't nobody. We give the shoes to somebody that has a reputation already. And I told him, the Adidas man, I said, man, you made a big mistake. You don't know me now, but you can wish you knew me tomorrow. Next day he came with a bag, big white Adidas bag with a sweatsuit in it, shoes, towel, everything with Adidas on it. I said, oh, this for me? He said, yes, sir. I said, could you step to the side for a minute? He looked at me, he stepped over, and I walked across the hall to one of the weightlifting guys, knocked on the door. I said, Neil, these shoes fit you? I wear 13, what you wear? He said 13, I said, happy birthday. I gave it to him. The guy said, you can't give that. I said, man, you gave it to me. I will never wear your product, okay? So we put the Puma shoe out there merely because the Puma shoe was not prejudiced or biased as to who they would give their shoes to. They let poor kids that couldn't afford shoes have shoes to go out and train to represent this country. They were smart enough to realize they was going to get a return on that, whereas Adidas was already saying, no, you have to be a champ before you can get our product. So that was the essence behind that particular demonstration in terms of getting ready, like to say, we're going to put something in the sky that they could never erase. You understand? They tried to bury this thing for 53 years. You never seen it in the movies. Why do you don't see it in the movies? For the mere fact that if it hits the movie, they figure it's going to give you guys a new paradigm. It's going to give you new strength. It's going to give you new vision in terms of how to fight this thing called oppression, this thing called racism. And education trickles down from your heart and your mind to your kids, because they're going to have to be the ones that carry the fight on. Like me, I look at Mr. Lyles every time he get out there to run, and he puts his fist to the sky before he run. Man, you just don't know what that do to me, bro. Man, I mean, tears in my eyes on the serious side. Because I know when you do it, man, I know you felt something when you turned the page and saw that, and I know you saw it a long time before you became this superstar track athlete. But it touched you, it moved you. And you say, man, I want to be a character like that individual there. And you don't have no fear. There's a lot of guys that feel the same way you do, but they are stricken with fear. Fear that they're not going to let me get a job, fear that they might kill me. And I tell guys, well, you're dying anyway. What are you worrying about them killing you for? You're going to die anyway. We all going to leave. But the name of the game is to set a precedent for the next generation. That's the next generation there. And what he's doing right now, he's going to carry the torch, and the other young individuals see him and they're going to inquire, well, what is Mr. Lyles doing up there? Why did he do that? And the smart person will say, research it. Find out.
I'm glad you talked about fear, Dr. Carlos, because I think about that a lot. When I think about all three of you, what was on the line for you, and how, quite frankly, I don't know if I could have faced some of the opposition, the racism, the discrimination, the overt anger that all of you faced throughout your careers. I think about a moment with you, Mr. Best, and it really resonated with me in that moment when you knew that they were threatening to throw acid in your face when you walked out in the field, just simply because of the color of your skin. And I said to myself, I used to think that I had a lot on my shoulders, just worrying about a Nike contract going down the track. I never was in fear of my life or my safety. You went out there and performed under those circumstances. How were you able to kind of put that out of your mind and go out there and excel? Can you take me to that moment and how you were able to get through it?
Well, it goes back to what he was just saying. You're not doing it for yourself. And before I left Bermuda, my dad always taught me that when you go to England and play, you're not playing for yourself. You're playing for all those people that work in the low-paying jobs, all the people that were on the train working, all the people that were in the hotels, all the poor people and stuff like that. So I knew from that I had a job to do, and nothing was going to deter me from doing what I had to do. And as I said, I would thank my teammates, because one of the guys that took me under his wing was Bobby Moore. And Bobby Moore was the captain of my team as well as captain of England. And we used to go every Friday to the agent's office and sit down and have a chat about what's going on, what to do, what to expect, and stuff like that. So I was more or less prepared, and I had a goal and I had a mission. It wasn't just about me. Whenever I played, it wasn't for me, it was for Bermuda. This is my home, and I want to make the people proud and let them see that I can handle whatever was thrown at me. And they weren't going to stop me from doing that. And when I look at it today, I think I done a pretty good job.
I agree. I'm going to shift a little bit and talk about leadership, coaches, management, individuals who are in the position to choose players and to kind of control the direction of some of our major sports entities. There's a lack of diversity on that level. I'll throw this out to any of you. What do you feel about that? Why does that continue to be an issue? There's just so much underrepresentation of black coaches, black managers, black owners. Why, when there are so many black athletes? I'm just struggling with that.
Well, from a golfing perspective, that's to be expected, because there aren't as many of us in the sport at all. And although there's a lot of black talent out there, and money has made it the big separator. But I think with the movements that have been taking place over the last 3 years, that the opportunity for us to raise the level of consciousness that's no longer acceptable. There's been a narrative out there. When in the 70s, people would pigeonhole you into certain aspects and make it sort of like unpalatable for blacks to hold positions that we are overly qualified for, and somewhat us go there and nurture people who are above us in whether or not it be sports management or even whether or not it be in agents. But because there is such an absence of us corporately, I think that hurts us, and I think we do a part to hurt ourselves as well, because there's not sufficiently enough cohesiveness that if it's a problem for me, eventually it may be a problem for your daughter. It might not be a problem for you, but if you don't tackle the problem now, you're kicking the can down the road. And I think the onus is on us. The one thing that I've come to appreciate through my journey in golf, in particular, when it comes to leadership, is that sometimes you spend a lot of time telling your own story, and people who are looking to capitalize on sport see the opportunities that exist. Any corporate person right now looking to build a team in reinsurance, for instance, picks athletes like that, because the way we're trained makes us team builders from the get-go. Even if we play individual sports in a team concept for whatever universities we've been trained. So we become an asset, but not the person that they want leading the organization. It's up to us to flip that script. What I've seen through this golf course, particularly where we sit today, 70 years ago, 7 years ago when this golf course was formulated and Ocean View Golf Club was constructed, golf was segregated. So you had, because of segregation, no matter if you were a black working class, you got to interact with a black doctor, because he couldn't go to the same places you couldn't go to for the same reason. When integration came, right? The world still acted the same way that the Caucasian rule promulgated. The Caucasian rule in golf solidified, institutionalized segregation, made it right, and made the way we live a problem, even for our own selves, as we tried to strive in a world that celebrated segregation. We've seen it play itself out. I don't mind telling them, a lot of my friends on Facebook during the last couple of years, I tell them I can't bring myself to play certain golf courses. I just can't. It's because it doesn't represent, they don't want me. And so, but there are a lot of people that tolerate too much. And I think for us, we've got to find a way to come together corporately, incorporate economically. Other communities make no apologies about doing it. You know, when Lewis Corbin was stopped from playing golf in New York back during the segregated years, when he was bold enough, because he was educated enough to know what he was up against, and you know, you had persons who knew how to work the system. You had Jewish clubs. You still have Jewish clubs in America. You still have Christian clubs in America. You have ethnic clubs in America. You have clubs that pick people there, but you don't find any black golf courses, because we might find a problem with that. Every other community knows how to work together. That's the one thing I learned about playing the PGA European Tour and going around, because you had enclaves. I was a loner, so I used to travel with the South American guys, the guys from Madrid, sometimes the Irish, and sometimes the guys from Africa. But they traveled together, they interacted, they partnered up. They do the same thing in business. But we don't do it for ourselves. Other groups and races of people will respect us more when we start showing greater respect for ourselves and working together, being more cooperative. And I've reached the age in life where I'm not going to wait for somebody else to tell me we need to do that. We've got to find a way to do it for ourselves. Start to celebrate each other. Because, you know, when I played golf in Alabama in the 70s, right? Guys used to say to me, "Well, Swanee, you're going to be the low black this week." And I had to take that. But guess what? When I used to say to them, guess what? The low black won the tournament. Oh boy, in Monroe, Louisiana. That made me feel good. But you had to drive over the Mississippi River to get to Monroe, go up through Selma and cut across. So what I'm trying to tell you is this, is that we need to communicate through the media, because the media know how to shut us down. The biggest celebration I ever had was when the Bermuda Community of Culture honored Louis Raphael Corbin and the work of Dr. Jeffrey Salmons about Bermuda. It lifted a burden off of my shoulders, because for all my life I was trying to tell that there were some great men in Bermuda that helped do some great things in golf. And when this story became, you were watching it, right? You were watching it. When that story came out in 2019, I felt a burden. When I was invited to hit the first ball at the PGA Tour event in 2019, a month later, I said, we've arrived. That story never made the air. And if it wasn't for one of my students at Cardiff University, Samson, that's a story in itself. Samson, Uncle Herman said Samson never played golf. Why are you trying to hit it so hard? And I laughed in 2016 when my best students named Samson. I said, Lord, you got a wicked sense of humor. And had his mom come there and filmed it. And that film, with all the footage, all of that, had never seen the light of day. The next year, the Masters has Lee Outer hitting the ceremony of first bowl with Nicholas and player, and I'm saying, wow. And the chairman of the Masters, I played in amateur tournaments with, as I ran around the South in the 70s. So what I'm trying to say is that what we're talking about happened in the 60s, because Bermuda grass sits dormant and the temperature goes beyond lower than 68 degrees. Is very active in 2021. And unless young people appreciate and are prepared to tackle this problem, it will be here for 2035. And as alive today as it is. And I'm one that embraces diversity, but you have to embrace truth first. And the truth is that we in the black community are still not an equal participant in the economics of the world. So therefore, those persons who are making those decisions can exclude us ever so easily from the boardrooms of this world. And then once you get in the boardroom, then there's other things that you have to tackle as well. But unless we're not there with the sufficient enough appreciation and respect and understanding to change this construct was put in place very cleverly and prosecuted very deliberately. And it can't go in one full swoop. It's going to take a sustained effort of embracement that it's wrong and it needs to stop. And you have to be in it for the long haul.
Can I just put a little adjective to what what brother is saying is this. He's saying that, you know, like, we all up here are sportsmen. Okay, we've been in the game, and I try and make people understand is that we chose to be in the game. I chose to get involved in track and field. I chose to be a boxer. He chose to be a soccer. He chose to be a golfer. But you guys are in the game too. When I'm talking about you guys, I'm talking about black society. You're in the game too. Only difference is that you didn't have no choice. You was pushed out into the game by birth. It's a game being played. The people that you was talking about that orchestrated, they're the orchestrators of this game. But the problem that we have is that 99% of us don't even realize that we in a game. What's the concept of a game? Why are we in the game? We're in the game to win. How are we going to win as a race of people if we don't even know that we're in the game? Our kids right now are still going through school. They're not going to school. We got to raise our kids up and say, hey, man, you are going to be the new phase of our history. But you have to go to school now with a new paradigm, son. You ain't going to school because I don't want you running the street. I want you to go there so you can sponge and suck up knowledge. Why? Because you have to be the one to put the seed down for the next generation to come. If we don't have anything to give to them, what they going to have to give to theirs? Right. A blunt? Right. A boombox? Right. You understand? We have to get tough about what's going on. It ain't about the fact that, you know, I'm a track guy. And yes, I see some people smile when I say a blunt. A blunt is good. A blunt is a good thing if you use it in the right way. Okay? No, that lady was laughing about the blunt. You weren't laughing about no boombox. But what I'm saying, you guys understand what I'm saying. We have to get a little more serious in terms of the legacy that we try to put off to our kids. It's something that I saw on TV that always kept me sharp. I saw a young white fella one day in the commercial, and he had his little son with him. And it was a hot day, and they went and they set up under this big tree. And the father went in his pocket and pulled out a pack of cigarettes. He popped the cigarette out, put it in his mouth, lit it up, and he put the cigarettes on the blanket that he was sitting on. The lighter. Well, what does a little kid do? I want to emphasize what my father did. And that's what our kids see in us. If we don't give them the right direction, whatever direction we give them in a negative sense, that's the only thing they have to hold on to. We got to look at ourselves as adults in terms of what we're leaving as a legacy behind for our kids. If they don't know nothing now, they ain't going to know nothing later. Put in their head right now that they have to be the sponge because you're going to be the leader one day. That's right. Right? Everything I did from when I went to Mexico City, I had just turned 23 years old. And I tell people, I say, you don't have to wait till you're 63. Right. You can do it at 23. You can do it at 13 if your head, your mind is right. I say, but the bottom line is, if you stand there and don't do nothing, you think the clock on the wall stops? Because you ain't doing nothing. All the time is still rolling. And I tell kids every day, I say, man, let me tell you, while you in school and you goofing around, Every time that clock make a revolution, you moving that much forward. And they said, moving that much forward to where? I said, to the other side of the bridge. I said, you know what's on the other side of the bridge? Adulthood. You cannot go on the other side of the bridge and have a 15-year-old mentality. Okay? It's our responsibility to raise them to the next level. Realize that we're in this game, and even greater than that, realize that we're in this game to win.
Unfortunately, we're running out of time, but I have so many questions I want to ask, and I know a lot of people would love to hear more, but it's a preview event, so we'll be back next year, right? But I do want to say something about uncomfortable conversations. You talked about uncomfortable conversations. You talked about not being afraid to tell the truth. And when we were planning this event, quite frankly, there were members of our community that said, it's a black golfers event, and I'm not black. How can I be a part of it? And it is uncomfortable to talk about race, and it is uncomfortable to talk about history for some people who don't look like us or have the same background. But they want to support, they want to help us move this mission forward. Where's the place for individuals that may not be from the exact same background to help and to support this mission?
Well, I think, first of all, if you a genuine human being, there's no color line. I've went places I never thought of no color. You understand? Color is always brought to me. If the NFL could have a white organization to create the NFL, why can't I have another organization to create the John and Carlos NFL? But the difference is the same. I can be a black entity and still open it up for society in general to come, anyone, any ethnic background, any sexual preference. I can do the same thing that they're doing. But in the game, they teach you that you're not supposed to do that. All you're supposed to be is the gatherer. See, and I tell white people when they come to me, oh, John, we want you to do this autograph signing, this and that. And I tell them, I said, man, you know what you look like to me? And they look at me like, what? I said, man, you look like the great white hunter. Would you call me? I said, you a hunter. You know what a hunter is, right? I said, and it looked like I'm the prey. Why? Why are you saying that? I said, man, because you bringing me in and telling me that you want to make you a bunch of money. You didn't bring me in to say you want to make us a bunch of money. You want me to sign, you want to give me a little token salary for my time, my 8 hours there, but the bulk of the money, you walking away with. We have to have an understanding of the game that's being played, so we sit in and say, man, I'm not throwing no rocks at you. I love people. I don't care what color you are. I love you. But at the same time, I can have more respect for you when you respect me as a man. Don't come to me like I'm dumb and young and don't know what the game is. You know, like I'm sitting back when you was running track. I'm looking at you, man, you give me $2 a day. And I see 150,000 people in the stadium chanting, Kyle us, Kyle us. And I'm getting $2 a day. I said, well, where's the Brinks truck going? And they ain't come by my neighborhood. Okay? So from that perspective, everyone realized that we can all roll our sleeves up and get busy. And let me just say this before I shut up. Everybody heard about the 68 deal, right? In 68, we put our thing up and my cause humanity, right? But when we did that, we wanted humanity to wrap its arms around us. But they flipped the narrative. They said it wasn't about humanity, it was about black power. So humanity froze. And the demise of Mr. Floyd, Ms. Taylor, and Trayvon Martin, then Black Lives Matter was born into the world. And what we looked for 53 years ago, humanity wrapped its arms around Black Lives Matter. They had the backdrop, Black Lives Matter, because everywhere in the world you saw a billboard, a poster, a t-shirt, or they talking about it on TV or what have you. It was responsibility to the Black Lives Matter organization to go take it to the next level. But they didn't know what the next level is, and that's why I said we got to be thinking and we got to start studying. The next level would be like this. If I have you humanity supporting me, this is the humane issue that we confront, and the humane issue that we confront is racism, bias, and prejudice, and separatists. I say, so when you had Black Lives Matter get the support of society, it was their responsibility to say, all right, now it's time for the roundtable discussion. Now, who's on the opposing side of this table? It has to start off with the federal government. Have to start off with the Fortune 500. Have to start off with the banking industry, the Board of Education, the housing industry, and the medical industry. Why? Not because they created racism. They didn't create racism. But what they did, they perpetuated. They threw logs in the fire. They didn't throw no water on it and try and stop it. They let it go on for 500 years. So my question to them now, do you feel that you have perpetuated racism? I'm looking for an answer. If they tell me yes, okay, I can digest that. But let me ask you another question. Do you have remorse for what you've done? If they say yes, then I look at them and I smile on my face and say, all right, now we can roll up our sleeves and we can get busy and reconstruct this society and make it what it should be. We can't let things like that go by. When you have the opportunity, it'll be 1,000 years before we get back to where we were right now. You heard about Black Lives Matter every day, 400 times a day. Now you can have 400 days and won't hear it one time. Think about it.
I'm going to end off with this because you just made a good point about Black Lives Matter and the fact that we have to, this is a great conversation, this is a good start, but we have to keep it going. We can't leave here, have a beautiful event, go home and not continue the action. One final point from each of you, how are we going to continue the action and make sure that this is something that's impactful? Mr. Best, I'll put you on the spot first.
Well, I think you have to continue what's going on. Don't be afraid. Have guts. It's just like when you play sport. You know, if you don't have guts and gumption, you're not going to achieve anything. You know, so it's a good thing with the Black Lives Matter, and let's see if we can continue it around the entire world. I mean, I know in England, in the football, you see the guys taking the knee, bending down, and they're involved in this issue. And as we said earlier, it's something that's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time.
Right.
But time is something that we have to work with, and let's continue beating on the door, beating the drum. Because, hey, eventually, you know, it's going to give in. You know, and as you said, we're not doing it for yourself, you're doing it for the entire world.
Right.
You know, I watched the program the other night on television. It was this part of Africa where the people hadn't had water for 12 years. Now you're gonna tell me the world is looking at something like that and you can't give those people something like water? You know, something is wrong. So we have to get this plot right, and you know, by doing what we're doing and the people like these two here and going around and pushing issues, I think we can achieve what we want. Now, I'm going to tell you all, I don't know if any of you saw Mia Motley's speech on the phone the other day.
Oh yeah, me too.
If you listen to what this lady said, it was unbelievable, it was mind-boggling that a young person like her can get up and tackle the big boys of the world and tell them exactly what needs to be done. If they don't pay attention to her, we're going to have big trouble in the world. So the world is a lovely place to live. We all love it. We want to continue to be here, but we got to take the right steps. And this lady, she's got her thing right.
And be strong.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to congratulate the Bermuda Tourism Authority and yourself, the CEO, the chairman, for bringing this forum here. And I can attest. I know of one gentleman who plays a lot of golf. He's from Switzerland. He comes back and forth from Bermuda, and he came and had a conversation with me. And he said, "Listen," he says, "I believe you're having a black golf event is racist." And I listened to him, and I said, "Us having a black golf event is causing something between you and I that hasn't happened in my country with people from my country that look like you. We're having a conversation, honestly, and I'm going to tell you what time it is." I said, when you go to the bank, if you go to a board meeting, right, you're going to an all-white affair. If you go to an insurance board, whatever board, there's very few boards you could go around in the corporate world and not be all white. And it brought me to something that happened on the golf course with Jim Thorpe, my good friend. We had just met Tiger in '95, then he was enamored down on Bay Hill. And we were going up to Fulton Allen's Pro-Am up at Heathrow. He said, come with me, Swanee, we can get you a couple of dollars and then I'll get a lift up to the Torrent Place Club. So we're walking up to Heathrow, to the putting green, and all the boys up there who we both knew, and they knew me, they said to me, tour pros, what are you two black boys doing together? And Jim Thorpe didn't miss a beat, and he said, well, I'm the same thing you and I are doing right up there. We're going to play us some golf. And then with a cigar in his mouth, he took me around the putting green. He said, brother, he said, you had to put that dog back in his doggone kennel right away. Because it's all right for them to play the PGA Tour every day as a threesome together, but anytime we're paired together, there's something wrong. And that is the mindset that people get in your head. Muhammad Ali was a sports psychologist before people knew how important sports psychologists was. He knew how to get in the head of his opponent. The reason why the white community has got dominance in business over us is that they've gotten in our head.
Yes.
They've gotten in our head psychologically to make us think something's wrong if the board is all black. But it's okay for them to have all board members that look like each other.
Yes.
And we've got to move beyond that so that then we can have the honest conversation. And so having this event means that we're starting to look to how we can go forward better as a people.
Yes.
Knowing this much, that is where we sit here. When golf was segregated and we built our own golf club here, everybody was invited, even when we were excluded. Black people are the most diverse practicing people on this planet. And I'll make no apologies. And I tell my white brothers and sisters who I love that the time has come in this world when you've got to help us to get over something that you constructed. John sang that song, Amazing Grace. It was written by a slave trader. How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. More people need to look at that song, look how it was caused to be written, look who wrote it, and figure out why he wrote it, and see if you really want to embrace Black Lives Matter, you need to study some real history of some transformational lives. I build swings for my life, for a living, because I've learned how to construct things. Sometimes you got to take it apart and put it together, the right piece at a time. And our community is broken, deliberately.
Come on.
And the only way to tackle it is that to be truthful about it. We got to be truthful. And these brothers, and I'm just, look, today, as I thank you, I'm only here as a vessel. Lewis Corbin died 70 years ago in 1951. Lewis Corbin's speaking to you now. Herman Tushy Bascom's speaking to you now. Earl Anderson's speaking to you now. Lenny Jones is speaking to you now. Earl Lowe, George Lowe, Bill Pitt Sr., Ernest Toppy Waters.
Come on now.
That's who's speaking now.
Yes.
That's whose shoulders I stand on.
Yes.
It was a reason why I didn't have the celebrity in golf. When I was winning in this, I'm a 70 success story. But the people this country chose to be the golfer of the decade had never won in college an idea 3 times. Had never done some of the things. But it's all right, because the problem that my forefathers that taught me had still exists today. Oh boy, it still exists today. And like Bermuda grass where you're standing on or sitting on out there, it's dormant when it's convenient. But when it wants to flourish, people know how to make it flourish and grow. So I'm here to tell you that we're going to, in order for us to tackle this problem of institutional racism, we've got to embrace some honesty that exists as much as it did in '68. It's manifested itself. It's adapted. It's diversified. It exists. It's among us. It lives and breathes.
We got to get him on tape.
Yes.
And I'm telling you, it is real. And I don't apologize because it's in my heart and I'm not doing it for me. It's because Herman Tushy Bascom my uncle who taught me, Earl Anderson who taught him, Lewis Corbin who was his rival, died broken-hearted men because of a Caucasian-only rule that existed from 1934, the year the Masters was founded by Bobby Jones. A Caucasian-only rule came into effect that the PGA Tour removed in 1961, but still prevented blacks from playing up until 1976.
What I wanted to say, and I feel, brother, I feel a little bit of what he said, and I'm glad that he went back into history because we are speaking for our elders. Okay? But what I like to have people take some focus on, how long has the Olympics been going on? The Olympics is the premier of athletics. Why and how long will it be before they think about having the Olympics in the continent of Africa? We act like, you know, as black people, and you asked a question about coaches earlier. You know, it's almost like coaches feel like, I don't have a ground of my own to stand on. As a coach, I had to follow the blueprint that was there before me. You know, like I said, the hunter. You understand? Because when I came through, I didn't see no black coaches. I had a coach that didn't know anything about track and field. He was there to get the stipend. I taught him about track and field. Okay? But I said, well, how come somebody that didn't know about track and field can't get a job as a track guy? Like, for instance, Carl Lewis. When Carl Lewis was running, breaking all the world records, winning 9 gold medals, the whole 9 yards, and then he went to apply for a job at UCLA, and they told him he wasn't qualified. How the hell a man gonna win 9 medals in Olympic Games and then tell him that he is not qualified to be the track coach? So in terms of us just accepting year after year after year, Olympic after Olympic after Olympics, the light has to come on your head because it come on my head a number of times. How come we never had the Olympics in the continent of Africa? How come we can't have an Olympics here in Bermuda? We can do a lot right here if we open up our minds and you say we want to bring tourism here. If you don't have the Olympics, you can have something here just as good as the Olympics called the Bermuda Olympics, the Bermuda Games, and bring people from all over the world to this beautiful, heavenly island that I might say that we are existing on today. It's for us to get up and make the change. It's a lot of white folks out there, I know down the line, that's been waiting for people such as myself to step up. You understand? When Harriet Tubman was running through trying to save individuals, she couldn't go to no black person to help her because there wasn't no black person in a position to help her. But there was some good, honest, sure enough, righteous white folks that said, I understand your plight. I want to be a part of your plight. I want to be a part of making change and do the downtrodden with all the sinister stuff that people have to deal with in life merely because of the texture of their hair or their skin color or their religion or their sexual preference. All this is nonsense. And if we don't do it as people, you think it's going to change? And I was telling Mr. Best, I said, my father told me when I was a little boy, he said to me, he said, son, I want you to always remember this. And I said, what's that, Daddy? He said, remember, a shy man will starve to death. Think about what I said. A shy man will starve to death, meaning that if you're hungry for something, but you're too shy to let them know that you're hungry for food for your belly or food for your brain, if you're too shy to ask them for it, you think they're going to just open up and be volunteer to give it to you? No, those individual white people that's out here that try and help you, get them by themselves one day and sit them down and have a one-on-one discussion with them. And open it up and ask them, say, how do your friends feel about you being associated with black people? How do your friends feel about you actually opening up and treating them like human beings, civil? And I'm sure a lot of them going to tell you, say, well, man, they're not too happy about it. They're not happy about it. but yet and still they still endure because they know it's the right thing to do. But if they're gonna do their part, you damn well, as black people, better do your part. Because let's go back to what my daddy said, a shy man is starved to death. If you don't reach up and let them know that you're about to die because you can't have the life that God intended for you to have, what's the point? What's the point?
Thank you, Dr. Carlos. Thank you, all of you, legends. Again, thank you for sharing your stories with us, your hearts with us, for being courageous, for not being afraid to have the conversations, the hard conversations, and helping to inspire us. We appreciate you.
Hey, can I just say one thing to all you guys here from Bermuda? My wife, my business partner, we done fell in love with your home, and what we want y'all to do is put us up as family. I don't care if you say we're family or if you say we're close to family. Make it bigger print so they can see. Because I'm gonna let them know, hey, where you from? I'm from Bermuda. And I will, God willing, be back.
Wow, 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 wow. Wasn't that incredible, you all? Wow. Wow. Listen, I know